Welcome back to the Sports Business Leaders Podcast. Today's guests on the show are Rita Finkel and Jonathan Schindel, co-presidents of the Armory Foundation. Welcome to the show, Rita and Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
The Armory is the premier indoor track and field center in America, home of the Millrose Games, the National Track and Field Hall of Fame, and more track and field records than any other facility in the world. Rita joined the Armory in 2006 and also serves as director of Armory College Prep and the foundation's no-cost college prep program for New York City students. And Jonathan came over in 2016 after more than a decade in private equity and now also serves as the organization's CFO. Together, they've led the foundation since 2017, carrying forward the vision of the late Dr. Sander in, quote, the house that Doc built.
Again, really excited for the conversation today. How are you two doing up in a very exciting summer for New York?
You know, summertime's the time that we always say we plan for the rest of the year. This has been a summer where we're planning for tomorrow every day. Been very busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we are. Sports Business Leaders was built out of Philadelphia, so we're cheering on the Knicks' victory, and it's really cool to see multiple World Cup cities in the same area of America. But today, we're not talking about soccer, and we're not talking about, NBA championships. We're talking about the Armory and the Armory Foundation. So we're going to talk about your backgrounds and a little bit of the nuances in running the busiest track in the world, community impact, and lots of things. But before we get into the core of the conversation, Rita and Jonathan, love to hear a little bit more about your stories. Rita, again, you come from running the oldest fencing club in America, super interesting background. And Jonathan, you came in from the capital side, the investment world, and you're on the Armory board. So love to walk us through your journeys and a little bit more about you two and your backgrounds before teaming up to run the Armory.
Rita, would you like to start?
Thank you. So I have three daughters who were fencers in their young years, and two of them through college. And I was somebody who was sitting at the Fencers Club, and the president of the board said, we've been running this place for a very long time, and there's never been an employee. Would you like to be the first employee in 115 years or something wild like that? Because we are moving to an expensive space. So I thought about it, and I thought, sure, I'll do that. And the fencing world is small, and it was a very interesting job. And 7 years later, after building up the club to what was then considered the Camelot of fencing, we had the best coaches in the world, many of the best coaches in the world on our floor. And we sent more athletes to the Olympics than any other club in the world. And I really felt I had done good work there. I had a great time, great coaches, great athletes. And when I met Dr. Sander, he said, don't you have the 7-year itch? Come join me at the Armory. We've got a building. It's big. The sport is much, much bigger. My kids were getting into college at that point, and I thought, okay, this could be interesting. And 20 years later, I'm still here, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful place for me. My sweet spot is the intersection of underserved youth, athletics, and education, and that's allowed me the opportunity to do that with Armory College Prep. And I think since Jonathan and I became co-presidents in 2017, we've been able to move the Armory from being pretty much a track and field institution into a community gem.
Jonathan, thank you, Rita. Jonathan, do you want to share a little bit more about your background?
Sure, I'd like to. So I was a college track athlete, cross-country athlete. And then when I graduated college, I sort of quasi hung up my Nike Pegasuses, and I went to law school and business school, and I worked for a very large law firm. During that time, I ran road races, that was the extension after college track and field. And my career in finance went from law firms to hedge funds, and then ultimately to private equity. It was a 24-year career in that field. I had a couple of young kids. I heard about a track and field event at the Armory, which I had never heard of before, despite being a college runner myself. I brought them here to the youth event. They had a blast. One of their schoolmates' parents was on the board. So when she heard I brought my kids here, the Armory Foundation being a nonprofit, she hit me up for a donation. So I made a donation, and the next thing I know, tap on the shoulder, would I have any interest in joining the board? Of course, I was pining to keep my running life going, and my kids had such a great time. I joined the board and began to see so many of the amazing things that go on here, track and field and non-track and field, and spent some time as a board member, talking to Dr. Sander, talking to Rita, and talking to others, and decided I would sort of retire from my finance career and roll up my sleeves here. And it's been a blast. It's great to work with Rita and the rest of the team here. And we're sort of in a growth phase, both on the community side and on the track and field side. Sometimes I look down at the track and I think, can it get any more crowded than this? We're bursting at the seams. But each year we analyze the numbers and we look at the number of athletes competing, the number of athletes training, the number of days we're open each year, the number of spectators, and they just keep going up. So sometimes I joke we need another track at the Armory, but it's fun. It's great fun.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's really exciting to hear about the growth that you're seeing. And what I love about hearing more about your backgrounds is that you have a very diverse team, even just between the two of you. And this gets talked about on our show quite a bit. We feature a lot of CEOs and leaders from companies in the sports ecosystem. And if you're raising capital or bringing on partners, people really is your team. And Rita, with your operator background in fencing, and then with your private equity background, Jonathan, with on the capital side, I mean, these are two very powerful perspectives that obviously are working well together because you guys have been a team for a decade. So it's working. So that's really exciting. And again, we're going to talk more about the growth. And I love that you mentioned that aspect, Jonathan. So I'm really excited for this next. This is like our meat and potatoes question. So you operate the busiest track in the world, right? And the numbers are staggering. Over 100 track meets a season, more than 180,000 athlete visits per year, nearly 1 million miles run on the track annually. And you produce all these records, more records than any other facility on the planet, right? So for people who've never walked into the building on a meet day, even things like being in the facility were referenced in some of your backstories. What does a season at the Armory actually look like from the inside? Love to hear a little bit more.
I think it's a marathon and not a sprint. We often call it a beast. It's a lot of hours. It's very exciting, day after day after day. And when we look at our track schedule and we think, yay, we get to do it again this year. It's brilliant athletes. It's exciting music. It's a team that we work with that is the best in the business. And we always are trying to make it better for the athletes, for the fans, for people who come in. We wring our hands about, is the temperature right? Is the track in great condition? Is the equipment that we're offering, is it the best? In addition to all these track meets, we also have practice, and we have these enormous practices. The high school practice can be up to 1,500 students in the house at the same time. The little kids are a steady 250 to 300 children at the same time on the track for an hour and a half. We have special days where we bring in seeing eye dogs that train with athletes to run with them. We have days when we bring in our neighbors. It's a very exciting season. And that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and longer. And I could not be happier.
Jake, one of the things that people should know is if you're 6 years old or 96 years old or anywhere in between, our track is available to you. And one of the great things about the sport, now our core audience is high school athletes. We get tons of college athletes. We get a ton of the younger ones, a ton of adults, but our core is high school athletes. And the great thing about high school track and field is that every single year, there's a new crop of freshmen, and they've all heard about the Armory. They heard during cross-country season. They heard, in their practices leading up to coming here. So you see those freshmen and their parents, and they come in with these big eyes because they've heard all these stories. And then you see the wow factor when they walk in, and they're walking in and they're running on the same track as, the Grant Fishers, the Sidney McLaughlins, the Thing Moes. And the excitement, the enthusiasm that they have is infectious. And whether you are, and then, some of them are going to continue to run. They're going to end up kind of like me, 40 years after high school, still running.
Very well, may I put it?
Thank you. Or they're going to hang up their running shoes and they'll play golf or whatever it is they choose. Whether they end up being a gold medalist like a Sidney McLaughlin or working their professional job, we want each of those athletes and everyone in between to never forget how exciting it was at the Armory. So if you're the slowest runner on your team and you've just finished a 8.5-minute mile race, or if you Quincy Wilson and you just broke the high school record we want each of those athletes to look back fondly and never forget their days at the Armory. That's the inspiration they give to us, and we want to give it back.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. What I'm hearing, and I think the through line between both of your responses to running the busiest track in the world, I just like saying that. You're obviously touching individual people's lives. Rita, you referenced the families and the children, and Jonathan, you're talking about the athletes, and there's a lot of impact there. And I really appreciate that perspective that you both shared on what it's like, being in a really exciting venue and a really exciting foundation. And one of the other things that you do in addition to touching these individuals, whether it be the families, the fans, the athletes, is impacting communities. And that's something that's very critical for fan engagement and brands maintenance. And, if you don't have community impact, your organization isn't going to be as successful. And obviously, the Armory is very intentional about this. And you're just as much of an educational institution as a sports and an events venue. The Armory College Prep has sent 100% of its seniors to four-year colleges. You run programs spanning elementary schools in the Little Feet program all the way to the seniors in the Aim High. I think these are different initiatives that the foundation runs. So in addition to touching the individuals' lives that you mentioned previously, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the intentionality that obviously is impacting communities as well. It's again critical to fan, brand, the partners touching these communities. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what community impact means to the Armory.
So, when I got here, Armory College Prep, the high school program was in place. And Dr. Sanders said to me, okay, you're charged with raising money for it. And it was kind of loose too. It was a drop-in center. And at 2 years into it, I said to Dr. Sanders, if you want me to raise money for this program, it's got to be a different program. And he said, okay, you run it. Okay, great. So I had at it. And in my book, if you're giving a very clear set of expectations, it was graduating from high school. We wanted 100% of the students to graduate from high school. Then we wanted 100% of the seniors to be accepted into at least one four-year college. And then we added, we had to help them raise enough financial aid, not loans, but enough financial aid so that a college degree became a reality and they would graduate from college without huge burdens. That plan, and it's a big team. It's not me. I, set tone and I make sure that what's happening is what we want to happen. It's a big team, and they have really put structure in place that makes this success possible. It's not guesswork. It's a very clear set of expectations. It's a very robust program. We start in September. We go through the end of May, depending on how restless the kids are. We might get them for a week or two in June. And then we also have a 6-week summer program where we help the seniors prepare early applications. Early applications is where a lot of the money is for the schools where the kids end up going. And then about 11 years ago, we looked and said, we don't have any students from Washington Heights. So let's see what we can do there. We decided we needed to bring the students in earlier than ninth grade. And so we started what is now Great Minds. And Great Minds now begins in fourth grade and goes 4th through 8. And that's an after-school educational program that draws from City Track and Little Feet, which are very large. 800 children are registered for the youth athletic programs. And the students come afterwards, or they come different days. So 4 days a week, we're running Great Minds. And the goal there is to develop a lifelong love of learning. And we really listen to the kids. We started the program teaching them how to build robots out of Legos with FIRST Robotics, and that was great. But the kids stay with us. And so 3 years in, they're like, okay, it's time to do something different. What can we do differently next year? So we decided we would buy a 3D printer, and we teach the children now how to code for a 3D printer. And we have corporate partners. And this has been a long-standing program, the stock market game that we play with the middle school students. And we have corporate partners that come in twice a month on Zooms that guide the kids and polish their understanding and their language and their vocabulary skills about finance. And the families adore it. Their kids are coming home, and it's opening the door to all sorts of things that wouldn't necessarily happen. And one other thing I want to say about Armory College Prep, the high school program, Students who come to us go through our program, get into college. We then offer to help them for the 4 years they're in college. So after their high school year and then through their junior year in college, help them find paid summer internships. And this is a thing that happens in New York City. We often call it the CHIT system. So your friends call you and say, can you hire my kid? Or can you find my kid a job? And the students that we work with, we can't assume that they can necessarily have their parents play the CHIT system. So Jonathan and I play it for them. And we get board members and sponsors. And every time we meet somebody at anything, we're asking if they can hire our students. And this year, 20 students are placed in paying, 18 are placed in paying jobs, and 2 have opportunities that were wonderful opportunities, but there was no funding for the opportunities. So we asked Friends of the Armory to cover those fees. And we're fortunate enough to put one child in a climate laboratory at Columbia University for the summer, where he gets to explore the growth of algae, which is kind of a hot topic right now. And the other child is in the neuro department at Weill Cornell. And these are life-changing opportunities. And the other ones, the paid ones that were paid, the other 18 as well. Now I'm going to stop talking so Jonathan can get word in edgewise.
That's fantastic. Jake, one of the great things that I find most fun is to tie our different areas together, tie the track together with the college prep, with the kids, and have them work in sync. And it was about 11 and a half years ago that Dr. Sanders said to me, what do you think about an indoor marathon? The world record is very soft and we could break the world record here. My reaction was, how many times around the track? He said 211. And I instinctively said, that sounds awful. And he looked crestfallen and my mind was racing. And I thought, well, gee, yeah, we can have the pros come and knock their brains out doing a marathon on a 200-meter track, but we can make it a corporate event. We can make it a corporate fundraiser where corporate teams get their colleagues together, 8 people on a team, each get to run 3 times. You know, one of the downsides about a marathon is you see your friends and family once or twice, 3 times maybe on the course. Here you can see them every 200 meters. So it's turned into an enormous event. We get more than 1,200 adults from all these companies in New York City. Some do it for fun. Some are very competitive. And we use that as a platform to then ask them to hire our kids with invaluable career stepping stone summer internship jobs. And then we also cross-sell them on, we have this big, beautiful arena in the summertime. Why not have an event here for your employees? And last Friday, Ernst & Young, EY, brought 525 of their summer interns here. We ordered 11,000 children's books, and the interns sorted the children's books by age, packed them into backpacks, created 1,200 backpacks filled with brand new children's books. And then we invited all the children from the Northern Manhattan community to come to the Armory on Friday afternoon and pick up a backpack of summer reading. And it just, again, it's so much fun to tie it all together.
It is a beautiful thing when those can happen. And I love how between the 2 of your answers, like my thesis and the question is exactly right, especially with that Ernst & Young example where you have impact to the community, measurable impact, things that you mentioned, Rita, where you mentioned the graduation rates and then you mentioned the college acceptance rates and almost like you've raised the bar along the way. And when I mentioned that, like, you know, a successful organization, successful events, a successful fan experience is anchored in community impact and the partners care about it too. So I love that Ernst & Young mention. And we're going to continue to talk about fan experience. Sometimes we call it fan engagement, but when we feature people who work at an NFL team or they're running some emerging league, fan experience is talked about in almost every episode. So I'm really glad this is your grand finale question. And it's again like community impact, something that the Armory cares quite a bit about. It's near and dear to your heart. And so what you've done is you've blended a century-old building with modern technology in order to bolster these things, right? You have state-of-the-art LED boards, new sound system, live results platforms, national broadcast moments. You create this atmosphere where an athlete can compete on the same track as an Olympian in this high-profile way that is probably a first experience for them of all time. So not only for the athletes, but for the fans. They're experiencing all of this when they're there at events, when they're in the building. So, love to hear as we conclude the conversation what the perspective is from the Armory on fan experience, fan engagement. What do you guys focus on within this lane?
I think that we look at each group of people who walk in the door and we want them to leave and say, wow, that was great. We spend a lot of time and energy and effort in making sure our team feels that way. And they do. They greet people at the front door warmly. It's not just Jonathan and I and what our philosophy is, but I think that we have been very successful in assembling a group of people who really buy into this. The fan experience is so important because for every athlete, you might have two fans. You might have two family members. You might have, two friends. So you want to make sure that not only the athlete says, okay, this is a brilliant track. It's a humidified space. This sound is wonderful, but that the people in the seats are saying, okay, I really want to come back here. We have wonderful food. The way the building is designed is such that you are almost on top of the track. And when people say, what's the reason that you have so many records? We always point to the way the building is designed. We don't have just seats on one side. We have them all the way around the track, and the people are very, very close, and the energy is traded. The athletes are bouncing it off the fans. And I think we think about all the different things that a fan wants to see. I'll let Jonathan talk about the results, but it's a very intentional focus for us. I think that we don't lose sight of who's important in this whole group. Everybody.
I agree with Rita completely. We affectionately call many of our track colleagues track nerds. We have a lot of academic nerds here as well. And we tell our track nerds, try to imagine what could be, and then come to us with your ideas. Come to us with your ideas about how to improve everything we're doing. Because if you can't imagine it, we can't build it. We're not going to promise that if you imagine it, we will build it, but we'll seriously consider it. And then we'll try to, if we think it's a good idea, we'll raise the money and we'll get it done. So if they can imagine it and it helps the sport and the experience, we will do it. That creates the platform. So when the athletes and the fans, they get here, the platform is here for them. The next step is for them not only to perform on the track or in the field events, but also to create the storylines, to create the narratives. I can't tell you how many TikToks and Instas are created during one of our busy track meets. But it feels like as many athletes are there, 4,000, 5,000, is the number of TikToks and Instas that are being created that same day. So the storytellers, we do it ourselves. We have a great social media team here, but we want to create the platform so that the athletes and the fans, the families, they're the storytellers as well. So our platform needs to energize them, needs to inspire them. And then they're going to create that content, that organic, wonderful content that they're proud of, that reflects well on them, on us, and the sport.
Yeah. What a cool example that you put down there at the end here, Jonathan, where obviously it's a combination of the athletes and the participants experience, but also the fan experience. If you have all of these participants in the event creating user-generated content around it, first of all, it's a really good depiction of that fan experience, and it's unbelievably great marketing for the event, the Armory, the brand, everything. And Rita, what you mentioned, every time we have a question, like the team behind you two is referenced. I really appreciate that. And there could be some truth to that. Like we were here in Philadelphia. I was at the Home Run Derby last night, and it's true. When the stadium is roaring, I think it helps you perform. And when you mentioned, Rita, about the connection potentially to the fan engagement in an in-venue context, maybe it really does help push additional world records over the bar. So I love the info about fan engagement. Anything else that you'd like to add about this? It's okay.
We love our fans. We love our athletes. We love our fans. I hope they feel the love when they come to the Armory. It's very genuine. We are delighted to do what we do and have this opportunity.
And if your listeners are coming to New York, I encourage them to drop by, catch a track meet, or just look. We're the home of the National Track and Field Hall of Fame. Football is Canton, Ohio. Baseball, Cooperstown. Basketball, Springfield. Track and field has the Armory. And your listeners can go to our two main websites, armorytrack.org and armory.nyc. And they can support us through donations on Armory Track NYC or coming to our track meets.
Absolutely. I love that. It seems like we're going to have to make it to an event at some point in the near future.
Yes.
And yes, this is always one of our grand finale questions. How can we follow along and learn more, which you just answered? And then if people want to reach out, follow along with your careers, if you use LinkedIn, or people want to reach out to you two, Jonathan and Rita, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
LinkedIn.
I great. It's a great resource to connect, and different people are interested in different things. And there's so much that goes on in our building. During the summertime, there are some track and field events, but the scope of non-track and field events is wide, from the bar exam to galas to expos. So there's a variety of ways in the off season that many people can interact with us, use the Armory. We are open for training twice a week as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for all the additional information. Well, Rita Finkel and Jonathan Schindel, co-presidents of the Armory Foundation, thanks for coming on the show today.
It was our pleasure. Thank you so much.